I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, everybody, welcome back to I Mix What I Like with the real Fantastic Four. Now, I stole it from you, Todd. There it is. I stole it. That's what you get for saying good stuff when we're off recording.
I love
Welcome
it.
back, Dr. Todd Steve Burrows, Saswat Padianik, and Samantha Yusuf, future Dr. Samantha Yusuf. Uh, um, all the links to all of their work and websites will be in the show description. So, but we've gathered or been called into formation to first discuss Fantastic Four and Superman. And I'm looking forward to this. I just watched the film this morning, so I'm really ready. That is the Fantastic Four, and have seen Superman, so I'm really ready to go. But welcome to the three of you. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining me and us.
Thank you. I'm here to listen
Thank you,
to
Janet.
the two S's here because I can't be objective with the Fantastic Four. I mean, you see this 3-foot Galactus in back of me, right? I need a new word to discuss the Fantastic Four because love just doesn't do it, right? It's kind of like if you love the sports team. Let's say you love the sports team your whole life, right? And you have all the paraphernalia, you have the season tickets and all of that, right? But they've never won a championship, right? And then finally they win a championship. This is how I felt when the Fantastic Four movie came out, and I was like, okay, not only does it not suck, but it actually is really good. Okay. And when you deal with the fact that not only are the Fantastic Four my favorite superheroes, but other than Doctor Who, Galactus and the Silver Surfer are my favorite characters in all of fantasy. I cannot be objective about this work. I've seen Fantastic Four quasi legally about 20 times now. 20. I'm going to see it another 20. I'm going to see it probably 100, 200 before I die. Like on my deathbed, I might be watching it. I don't know. And I've seen maybe about 10 reaction videos at this point, maybe more, right? But I need your analysis. I need, and Sam, I was watching you with Jared and all these segments. I was like, okay, I need Sam to tell me what she thinks of this crazy utopia that is promoted, I think, not only in Fantastic Four, but in both films, Superman. And I'll tie it into what James Gunn is doing because Superman and Peacemaker are going in this kind of direction where he seems to want to have a public discussion about utopia and race and this kind of stuff. So I'm really here to listen to the three of you talk about these films, and then I'll just geek in. I won't contribute. I'll geek in. That's what I'll call it. So thank you to the three of you for this discussion.
Thank you for having this discussion too.
Please, yeah. Go ahead.
Like the uniting theme between the things that you're a fan of, is this like the time and space, like exploration travel kind of?
Absolutely. You got it.
Because I've geeked out about those things too. Like I definitely have a different perspective on a colonial imperial perspective on things, but I have been, I have this conflicting thing too, because I've been through I've always been geek and a fan.
And that's why I want to hear what you guys think, because in the comics, and I know the comics relatively well. I mean, I have read my share of the 6 decades of them, and a lot of that stuff is even back of me. You just can't see it because I'm literally blocking Fantastic Four action figures and huge $100 omnibuses over different decades of the Fantastic Four. But the weird decision that Marvel made to have them be the government, the UN. That's what I wanted to hear you guys talk about, because I'm like, they're not the UN in the comics. They're not the government in the comics. They're just another group. But when Marvel decided to make them separate from the main universe that they're in, because Marvel's doing a whole multiverse thing, and it's a long discussion. I can't really get into it. But when they decided to put the Fantastic Four in a separate universe, they went whole hog and said, okay, let's make them the government. Let's make them the Apollo astronauts. Let's make them the United Nations. Let's drape everything in blue, which happens to be their color anyway. But we know the color of the UN is blue, right? So I was just like, what is going on? This is wacky, you know. So that's why I wanted to hear you guys talk.
Well, Samantha, if I can sort of softball something for you, or whatever they alley oop something for you.
Sure.
One of the reviews that I enjoyed and appreciated reading about the Fantastic Four speaks to something that you talk about, and I think might be able to help us here with. In this article, the Fantastic Four First Steps is about a country that misses who it thought it was.
That's a good title.
Yeah, by Disha, in Counter Currents. And just a little bit here, the first thing that it points out is that it talks about the aesthetics of the setting, the sort of fake 1960s, but with all this advanced tech and this weird, But this is the line that I said I thought immediately about your analysis and work. The setting is not historically accurate; it is emotionally engineered. It is America not as it was, but as it wishes to remember itself.
Yeah.
And then to hear Todd talk about gush over this film he's going to see endlessly and ask why, I thought this is exactly what it's, because this emotional engineering. What we see is the story not just a reboot of a franchise; it's the story of a country that misses who it thought it was. The use of the Jetson style optimism and Wonder Years tone of innocence is not accidental. It's meant to engineer feelings, but feelings are not facts. I think you've even said that. I feel like you even said that line
That's
yourself.
the whole, that is literally there's not, like I had said it in some of our other discussions, but as artists working on this, no matter what level of the production you're working on, the main thing is the feeling. Like, you won't even get hired if your work isn't capable of, we call it storytelling. And we'll even say that, we call it by different, we will say feeling, but it is really about emotions. And that is what we value the most. We judge films by saying that they didn't have emotional resonance, they didn't elicit this kind of feeling, and that's what we feel is the most meaningful thing to achieve. And even on every level, even costume designs or everything, just as an individual image has to feel the way that we want it to feel, and that's how we consider legitimate storytelling. And in both these films, and I feel bad, Todd, because I don't want to ruin your.
No, we need to ruin it. We need to bring Todd down. Todd is way too up on this right here. We need to
ruin it. Ruin it. I need something else to think about. Yeah. During the next 100 times I watch this film, I need something else to think about. No, go right ahead.
The emotional thing is the main thing, and actually and I'll just to add to this, because since the conversations I've had with you, Jared, and in these spaces, it's the first time that I've actually had to sort of articulate it to people that were not that I wasn't trying to train how to do these films, to try to actually look at it from this psychoanalyst perspective of what we're doing to audiences, really what we're doing. And that's even for me to be good at my job, I also have to not let the films manipulate me. That's been a big thing. When I work, when I'm working on these projects, I'm over that's sort of the work that I got into, is working with the director, next to the director or for the director, and just overseeing the whole thing to ensure this cohesive vision, through this, from the narrative to the visuals, that everything reinforces that. So every stage of production that we're doing is about that feeling. Every shot, even the actors' performances are heavily edited. We'll do tons of takes, and then we curate almost a new performance. Sometimes they'll see it and they'll not even realize that was the performance, because we chop it up and we really just think about getting that feeling. So everything is about building up this emotional resonance, and it's seen more as taking you through an emotional ride, a roller coaster ride or a theme park ride, than it is actually about being consistent with the vision. And the thing is, for me, is for me, for me to be good at my job, I often don't like to watch these films in the way that they're laid out, so that I'm not primed the way that we try to prime and manipulate the audience, because then it makes it easier for me to point, like, to find the flaws and make it, better or more consistent. So like this film, like, there's so many like just problematic inconsistencies, but because of the ways that the emotions are heightened, and other things that, because I've actually been trying to like write this now, like just to write a book or write something about this, and so as I've been going through it and just breaking things down, like everything has a specific purpose, and films both like Superman and Fantastic Four have like a lot of movement in them, like a lot, like not just in fight choreography, but just like lots of, like the lava, the surfer going through the lava with, after the Human Torch, and like movement engaged, like the more, like I feel like it's like there's all these boxes that we can check, and these films are almost like, I feel like even 20 years ago we would have made films where we're like, how can we improve it, and we'll add these things, whereas now these films are being made like going in with all the things that we know will work right away, and that almost makes the foundation. So we know like movement doesn't necessarily emotionally co-opt you, but movement gets you way more invested in what you're watching and more engaged in the scenes. And then the pacing of the editing and the music and the sound, and a lot of it is pacing, like when we go fast and slow and take you through these kind of things and how we curate that, that's going to be more about the opinion shaping and the where we put in messaging and stuff like that. But the more movement we put in, the more that we can get you really engaged, like right away. I thought it was interesting because now that I finally watched Superman, it was interesting that they actually didn't start it with a lot of dynamic movement. Like they just kind of started it, a little bit like still. But a lot of these, like, that's like within the whole story, though, there were just so many of these flying fight sequences and just constantly moving cameras. So that's like going to not let audiences pick up on, like, you're going to be way more, you're going to get very invested like right away. It's going to engage you. So that was one of the things, like, to me, when I was watching them, I just felt like they were like just very, very, they're like commercials, like the whole thing. And then there's also the product endorsements, like the Lucky Charms, that I think you can buy these retro Lucky Charms now for like $20 or something. Like they have like all their products, and
The 7-Up thing falling on somebody's,
Yes. And there's like all of those things. So I find like that they went into overkill with using the way that they use cameras, movement, music, emotions. They both are really similar in that they even had these really corny speeches that were like really, like, if you get yourself out of the context, like when they delivered these speeches, there was a lot of heightened emotion. So like Superman gave this speech to Lex Luthor at the end, and it was very like, that's what being human is too, or whatever. And the same thing with Sue giving a speech about like something bigger than yourself, about like her baby, and that these people are all their family. And yet it's such a contradictory speech, because she's like, you have to believe in something bigger than yourself, except for me. I don't really believe in saving all of you. I just care about myself. And
well, I think what Sue was trying to say was, you've got to believe in us.
Yeah.
Because we're the saviors here, and we're going to save you. And that's why the entire world is doing whatever these 3 white people and 1 Latin guy says, which I thought was goofy as hell. I was like, that's crazy.
Power dynamics are like,
right.
It's really like, and all of these things that they're doing are like flattening out any sense of power dynamics, and they're just omitting, like, as if that's not an issue. They're normalizing this idea. And sorry, I have like so many tangents, like, to go into. I don't want to derail too much, but even with what you're like, just as a quick thing too, like, because in your email, you were saying, like, talking about this demilitarized thing. They are literally the military. They're the military. And not only are they like, seem to be running America, but they also are like, yes, we are the speakers for the entire planet. Like everybody else doesn't have.
Did we even see any other government officials or military officials in the film?
No,
I don't think there's like
any thinkers. Like,
No.
the only professors in the
Yeah,
world.
he's the
or
only professor. Yeah.
Right.
in the world. They're the only linguists in the
Right.
world. Like,
Right.
nobody else can do anything except them, and they're the one with the chosen, you know,
The chosen one
chosen
who
baby.
can feed the hunger of Galactus.
Yes,
And
bring
that
people back
last
to
scene,
life. And like,
that last scene where Sue was brought back to life, you talk about these who are the saviors, and Saswa, please jump in. I just want to they
Sure. Yeah, no.
want to, even the way her eyes light up when she
Yeah.
comes back to life. It's like, to me, I took it as this was the super Aryanness, the super whiteness. Like everybody had blue eyes, so you
Yeah.
could say, I know the actor is a Latino, but he's not playing
no, he's
Latino.
white.
No, he's not.
Yeah,
No, he's
there's
not.
no hint of an accent.
Yeah,
No,
There's
he's not
no
presenting
no
Latino.
reference to my wherever my people come
No,
from.
Yes. No, that's actually something I found really sorry, I'll come back. Let me come back to it. You talk,
No, please,
because I'm just gonna keep going.
No, because I just thought I'll probably lose this thought about the actor. I mean, the actor has been, he has been doing the, all the good stuff in real life. At least he is, supporting Palestine very vocally, and we have deep appreciation for him. He comes from a, from the family in Chile, the Salvador, Allende family. So that's pretty good.
I know that.
Yes,
Okay.
I
he's
didn't know that either.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so
I'm sorry,
so
on my end, you
despite all
glitched there a
that,
little bit. You're saying he comes out of the Salvador Allende family out of Chile.
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the family, yes, yes, his I think his aunt is Salvador's wife or something like that. So yeah, familial tradition with socialism at least. But now to see him doing this, I mean, it was, of course, apart from the specificities, I will just like to say from where I come from. And Jared, thank you for sharing Countercurrents website. You can actually see like several of my articles have appeared there. It's a very, very good publication, and I agree with that interpretation of it. Not to mention, I think anywhere, Todd is a big fan of superhero stories, but I have a problem with superheroes. All right, I have a problem with not just the whole white savior syndrome which we see here. I mean, time and again, and it's very uncomfortable seeing that. Literally, these people sit down in a place and start making calls to all different cities of the world to say, hey, now we are I mean, it's literally glorifying this, not only centering of America, but to say that we are the good guys, we are coordinating the efforts to solve the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, forget about acknowledging that you guys are literally the reason why we are in such a mess to begin with. And
And by the way, I don't think they call one African country when they're making those.
No, they
when they're
did not.
singing
They
that
did not.
They're just talking to all
They don't have.
country.
They don't have
billion of us, telling everybody, chill. I got
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they don't even that whole
No.
invisibilizing of global South. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not even a very well thought out thing. It just comes intuitively to them because they just take the rest of the people for granted anyway. So I grew up in India with a comic strip which I like, because DC and Marvel, we didn't have any we didn't know about these things. But however, we did grow up with a character which Todd later told me had its origins here. I think Marvel, which is Phantom. Now, when I see Phantom as this superhero, Phantom is extremely popular all over India. Now, Phantom is this guy who wears a skin, and he appears to be black. He's, I mean, or at least purple skin, but people would think of him as a native person of Africa, whereas he is not. When he like when he dies and rip up the skin, it turns out to be a white guy. And
he's
like
blackface, basically, is a blackface superhero.
Yeah, exactly. And then like generationally, I think the last Phantom was on his 24th or something. So like generationally, he has been saving the world, pretending to be from Africa, and whereas he's not. So however, that's the superhero problem. My dad used to warn me against this loving superheroes, because we should not be waiting for superheroes, right? So Maxim Gorky, one of the Soviet Union's foremost novelists and writers, who had written this beautiful book called Mother, he had a beautiful quote to say. He used to say that the protagonist or the hero of my script is human labor, not one person or some kind of a savior. So
Yeah.
so our collective labor has to prevail. So then you do not look for somebody or do not wait for some guy to come and save us. So,
Mhm.
but however, in these stories, I mean, these movies, I find very troubling. Not just this or Superman or several of these. I don't want to name all of them, but the constant theme is there are these good guys who pretend to be who appear to be heroes, and they come to save, and we have this constant urge to be saved by somebody.
Yeah.
And that has a very real life parallel to the world. It's not an imaginary thing. In real life also, we are waiting for maybe our president will do something, so we have to elect somebody good so he can come and solve the problem, he or she, to be politically correct. But we are always looking for somebody to come and do that,
Mhm.
and that is a big problem. And so let's say law and order. I mean, why I'm saying this law and order parallel, because I don't see any distinction between this and any superhero,
I don't.
whether
I
whether
feel like
whether it's men in
Yeah.
uniform. I mean, you see that at the end of it, this cop is going to solve everything. So
Yeah.
just relax, go through this half an hour journey, and you'll be fine, because this person is going to. So this faith in the hierarchy of hierarchy of power relations, in which who are the big guys, so we have to look up to them. So that is basically the centering of that itself. On top of it, I don't know how even they're able to get away with all these things. Literally, all these people are being white, and people I don't know, even in 2025 they still get away with this, right? As far as James Gunn is concerned, Todd, I mean, thank you for bringing his name in. But if you remember, I don't know if you do, he had been implicated in this whole not Me Too kind of thing, but in Twitter, he had written all kinds of nasty things. I mean,
they're all.
horribly nasty things. He's a at the first and foremost, he was very vocally rape apologist. The
Yeah.
way he used to describe those, and then all these characters from the comic world, he would bring up these female characters and then highly not just sexualize or objectifies, but very viscerally writing about how he would do certain acts with them. So this is the man we are talking about.
Yeah.
Now he of course say, oh, I was that was like 10 years ago. I mean, 10
Right,
years
right, right.
come
They
on, 10 years
always
ago
do
doesn't
that.
make sense.
And they
So
always
we really have to call out every single time we have discussions on these kind of things. We also have to
Right.
call out these makers, how they have been normalized just because they happen to be anti-Donald Trump, maybe. I don't know. So this
That's
whole there is so that
it is
that in
so
itself is
sad.
not a qualification to be. So they have been and yeah. So these are sorry. Go ahead. Then we
No,
can.
no, I actually made like some notes on the side of little things, and that is like one of those things. Like even the director, oh my gosh, I'm running a blank. The director of
James.
Fantastic Four.
Matt
No,
Shack.
yeah,
Matt
he
Shack.
like he was like in Skull and Bones in Yale and stuff. Like and they're
Really?
yeah, and they're all friends with each other. And then the other
Yeah.
screenwriters, like Jeff Kaplan and Ian Springer, they're like best. Like this is the other thing. Fantastic Four just normalizes these white, like nepotism families. Like
Yes.
they're all like,
Yes.
it's my best friend, it's my brother, it's my
Right.
girlfriend. Like they're
Right.
and that's the team that saves the world. Like nobody else gets a chance
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for this
And
job.
and regarding Peacemaker, Todd, mentioned about Peacemaker, right? That's the HBO Max
That's also
Oh
series.
James
yeah,
Gunn.
which I
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah.
I haven't
Look at
That's
watched
also
how
James Gunn.
extremely
these
how
all these superhero films and like
how
and I
extremely problematic that
yes
is, right?
and
So
like
they
Jeff
literally
Kaplan,
literally
he's
they're
from
not only normalizing Nazi symbols, dance
yeah
forms, and all that stuff,
all of
but
it.
also trying to say, hey, Nazis came to this country, but Americans had a victory over them. They, for not even once they mention the word, let's say Soviet Union, or let's say the Red Army,
Yeah,
or the communists. There is none of
That's
that.
true.
So it's
yeah.
it is,
True.
it is almost like there are these Nazis and Americans and anti-Nazis and Americans. Come on, give it a break.
It's
It's not the center, it's
That's
I
completely
true.
even
destroying history. I mean, this
No,
is
that's true.
the revisionist
and
form of history, which is
I almost feel like they're almost like retroactively like honoring the Nazis. Like
yeah,
that they
oh,
use the
absolutely,
Nazis
absolutely.
to be like, we beat them, but then they like, and I think and like, oh, I'll just add one thing, sorry, before I jump around. Like Jeff Kaplan, just so people know also, he was a long time at Blizzard Animation, which is a gaming studio in California, and like they went through that, like, what was it, $90 million or something sexual harassment lawsuit because of like a super toxic environment. And this is a guy that was overseeing all of that. And these guys, it's just like John Lasseter at Pixar. These guys actually have like lawsuits for sexual harassment, and they swept under the rug, and they get like, or they just change studios because it's uncomfortable and they go somewhere else, and then everybody forgets, and they're all friends with each other, and they're all like from the same circles, the same like, and so sorry, that's what I want to say.
No, they're true. I think that does need to be pointed out.
I want to give an example.
Not as a main theme of any discussion, but definitely it's something we need to acknowledge. We should not forget.
But we'll come back.
I want to give an example of how deep the whitewash.
Wait, hold on. I'm sorry, Samantha. Were you not finished?
Well, it's two things, because I wanted to go back to the Kaplan thing, but I do want to like talk a little bit more about the Nazi thing. But like I've got like so like I'll let it cycle. I've got so much to say.
You're right. Well, let me take a quick interlude, because I want to say something that's going to make Jared laugh. I want to talk about Phantom, Sasha, because I do like the Phantom, right? Okay, the white guy who as a kid gets adopted by the indigenous tribe, and the indigenous tribe gives him all the secrets and powers and all this. So then he becomes this superhero, right?
Like Tarzan.
Yeah, it's definitely it's the best version of the Tarzan kind of thing.
Yeah.
I just want to say this, Jared. There's a cartoon called Phantom 2040, which is about, like, Sasha knows about this. It's about like the latest Phantom, or like, I don't know if the Phantoms after that or whatever. But that cartoon came out in the 90s. The same people who did Aeon Flux did that cartoon.
Oh.
And they tried to whitewash the whole thing in the pilot, because what they do is that they make Phantom still white. He's still white, right? But the Obi-Wan Kenobi character is an African. And so by the end of the pilot, the Obi-Wan Kenobi says to the Phantom, go and fight these corporations here, because Phantom is about corporate control and all that. It's very much influenced by Blade Runner and all that. But the Obi-Wan Kenobi character, Jared, says, Africa is free. So you don't have to worry. No, go watch the pilot of the cartoon. It says Africa is free, so you don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about that.
Right.
You don't have to protect Africa anymore.
Because
the Phantom was the white protector of Africa. So the Obi character goes and says, because Africa is free, you can now focus on these corporations. And that's how like the pilot of that cartoon ends. So like they're constantly whitewashing this stuff. And Fantastic Four, the characters were created in 1961 during the height of the Cold War, during the beginning of the space race. So they, as you see, they decided to incorporate all of that in there. Sasha, I don't know if you caught in the beginning, when they do the montage, they say red ghost and the super apes.
Yeah.
Well, the red ghost was the Soviet astronaut who was a rival to the Fantastic Four and all that. But interestingly enough, they cut him out of the film. They just show the apes, because John Malkovich was supposed to be in the Fantastic Four as the red ghost, but they cut him out of the film and just showed the apes, right?
Yeah.
So take that as you know.
Very. No, true. I think, and the other thing about the constant narrative that third world countries or developing nations have the dictators who are ruling from the top, whereas the truth is the collective liberation spirit of freedom movements in third world countries have always been people centric. And much later the leader is selected, let's say not elected, selected from among them. But the revolutions have always been done by the people themselves. And whereas in the Western, in the so-called first world, it is actually literally the opposite, except they normalize the dictatorial rule of the corporations as by calling them democracy. And by calling them all these positively laced words that we know of today, individual liberty and all that stuff. So that's the difference between an individualistic society in which you will always look for some some individual to come and rescue you, as opposed to a a socialistic society in which the society itself takes up the responsibility of its own failures or successes.
By the way,
Therefore,
I also wanted to just point out very quickly, because I definitely want to hear you two talk, particularly about whether Superman is a anti-Zionist film, a film for the Palestinians. I definitely want to hear your view on that.
yeah,
But I just want to point out.
I
But I just want to point out that superheroes were created in the 30s.
Yep.
At the same time, you had the big men of the world, where you had Roosevelt and Stalin and all these folks, and so it's not accidental that these characters, which are part of the zeitgeist, part of the collective unconsciousness, if we go Jungian, right? But it's not accidental that they come out during a period of time where people are looking for these big men to create or recreate their societies or rescue them.
But Todd, these superheroes that you're referring to is 30s. They're typically American characters. They're still it is those were excluded from rest of the world. I mean, unless through some kind of cultural hegemonic spread of the superheroes as representative of other parts, but they were not known to. I mean,
well,
to
Storm
tell
was
you the truth,
Ethiopian, right?
Right.
But that's also
long
very
white flowing hair. Yes.
Like that's like, I think that's the thing though, is that I mean, like I would argue that Superman is a more like Zionist leaning film than a pro-Palestinian film, but whether it was specifically Zionism or if it's just from the Euro like centric white supremacist Aryan race movement in Europe kind of thing, like I don't know if it would have been specifically that, but all of these, like, this is why these stories lend themselves to the propaganda that we're doing now. Because I was thinking about this a lot, and part of me is like, was it really necessarily like that? But Superman is literally named Übermenschen. Like English translation of Übermenschen is Superman, and these characters are eugenics based superior people. And I don't know necessarily, let's say with Storm, if this has a Zionist relationship or not, but Ethiopian Jews are the ones that were, allowed to come and populate Israel. And even if, obviously a lot of the founders of these comic books were Jewish people, whether or not they were Zionist is different, but they still brought European ideas from where they came from. And everything was about these Übermenschens, these individual like superior beings that were actually better than humans, and that's argued through all these films every time, like throughout, like even the older Supermans, like the Christopher Reeve ones or whatever, every time that there is a doubt about Superman's integrity, like they'll present it and then they'll dispel it. They'll show you that in the end these Übermenschen are better and they're good people and they're better, and we should aspire to, if we can't be the Übermenschen, support them, worship them, and all, and again, this idea of collective mentality, it's the people, the regular people in all these films are like, I don't know, single digit IQ people. Like, I mean, I don't.
They have absolutely no
they're all like
no agency whatsoever.
They just want to know, what are you going to do? What happens next? And then anytime that they have a contract, like I couldn't believe in Fantastic Four, they give the dumbest speeches and then people are like crying and like, oh, that was so wonderful. And then the only times they contradict them is because it just needed to be in the narrative to give the opportunity to dispel it to the audience, to give an opportunity to say, we're going to present you with the reason why this is the better decision. And like, I mean, it's and I'd like, and again, there's, and the whole utopia, like, I mean, this sort of, it's slightly different in Superman, but something about these two sort of utopian societies that they've built, like, I mean, as a non-American, what I found profoundly disturbing, like Fantastic Four was very much like white and black. And black people, there were like the mammy characters that like support the white woman.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, or the makeup artists that are making them look nice. It's all these black women. Or the only other person was when Sue disappeared in her UN thing, with her mammy person, like, and this black man possibly from Africa, and they say something like he's like the coal mining person.
Right.
He's one
Right.
of those people that are polluting the world.
Right.
He's the only
Right.
Black leader that we see, and
That's
all
true.
the other leadership positions, media positions are white. And the creepiest thing is that, like, because Pedro Pascal doesn't count in this case because he is playing a white character, the creepiest thing is that Indigenous or West Asian people are like fully erased, or South Asian people, like they don't exist in this world. And I found that creepy because I always find that like the way that these kind of necropolitics are that all of us are expendable, and the only people that will not be fully genocided are Black people, because Black people need to be around for white supremacy to exist. Everybody else can get wiped off the planet and they will control the levels of how Black people can operate in this world. And that is what, like, I'm watching and I was just like, this is so creepy. This whole world is absent of those people. And then in Superman, I'm actually curious, Sasquatch, what you have to say about this, but the only time that we could, like the falafel vendor, which last time I checked,
I was going to bring that up. Good.
Asian food, and every time, like if it's a villain, they'll be an Arab, but if it's not a villain, it has to be an Indian person, like Indian Arabs or something. Like it's always Indian person playing. Like so, like Arabs don't exist in the civilized world. Their food does, I guess, true. You know, or something.
True. I mean, you know, Superman had this golden opportunity to present Arab population if they really wanted to be an anti-Zionist movie. I mean, you know, for what it's worth, the movie did enthuse you know, like a lot of us, we felt okay, you know, somewhat vindicated. There were you know, a lot of, I know many prominent pro-Palestinian activists who shared good stuff about the movie, saying okay, this comes at a, you know, critical juncture in which it will let people ask the questions, which is fine as a tool that someone can use creatively to ask the difficult questions, or to, you know, emotionally blackmail artists into, you know, signing the Artist Against Apartheid letters. So which is fine, but there where it ends. I mean, because this could have been, and you know, with the growing diversity in American society today, there is really no excuse. I mean, in 1950s, you could still say, okay, you know, this is what the, you know, white dominant society this country is, so this is what we can represent. I mean, right now there is no excuse for that. That they're still doing it. It is shameful.
I think that
they're
the
getting away with
Palestine thing, like you know, in 10 years that could represent another country. Like I don't think this has anything to do with Palestine, because it actually, the Moravia leader could have been more associated with Putin, for example, or something. And even like Jamanpur, like it doesn't sound Middle Eastern. It has more of a South Asian, like, I mean, sounding, you know, lettering.
Yeah. Just to be devil's advocate here, what was going on at that time is the constant, you know, exposure of people to the concentration camp in Gaza. So we are seeing that. So we were seeing some kind of a parallel of that in the movie, or we wanted to see that, to, you know, have some kind of a salvaging moment.
But they did look
and that
Palestinian.
did not
Is
go
that
unnoticed.
fair to say that they look Palestinian?
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that they did.
No,
they looked
I would not even
like,
go there. I would not even go there. I don't think so. First of all, I don't think that's true, because again, if you really wanted to, you know, like stereotype a population's look on a film, it's very easy to do that. I mean, to present Arab people, Hollywood has been doing it for the longest time. You know, even, you know, Lawrence of Arabia, they even have white people who look exactly like Arab people. They can do all that, but in this case, they did not do that. But the sentiment that there is this very powerful small military outfits, let's say the IOF here, and then as opposed to a huge concentration camp that they have been you know, controlling very minutely. And here, I mean, of course, these are like really hapless victims. They are not Hamas. They are not people who are known to resist and all of that. So their agencies have been bereft of them in the movie. That is, of course, there. But this again, like you know, Samantha was saying about how feelings are appropriated in cinemas. So in the people watching, or even, you know, kids, the Gen Z kids watching those films and then sharing some excerpts therein, you know, howsoever little informed they are, they were seeing the parallels. because they're they're like they were feeling vindicated or little hopeful. Okay, this is what is. So again, this is their introduction to
But
superhero of today's contemporary crisis. We want by all means necessary, including emotional ones, to isolate Israeli army as this extremely unacceptable, and the people who are in chains to be fully liberated at the end of it. So every revolution, forgive me for saying this, every revolutionary theme, whether in the poems of Neruda or in the cinemas in from the socialist realism era, they do end with some kind of a hope element at the end. I mean, it may not happen now, but there is this new coming, that something will happen tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a better day than today. This theme has to be persistently there. I mean, it's not objective.
But I
It's
feel
not,
that the
it
theme
may not
that's
happen in
consistently
what.
there is protect the
Yeah.
status quo. I think that that's more of
Mhm.
what it is. It's restoring the order of the liberal status quo, and that, like, yay, we all happily did it, but the individual character went through a journey, not the society. And the other thing, like, I'll just say this, like, from the side that we're on, when we
Mhm.
make these films too, we are actually, like, consciously aware that we want you to fill in the gaps of, like, justifying the emotions that you're feeling. So the students that are watching the Palestine thing will feel that. But, like, in Israel, like, some people that I know that are in Israel, they were saying in Israel everyone thought it was Russia, Ukraine. Nobody saw the parallel of.
Oh, no, no, no.
Yeah,
Is that
and so
right? I mean, because a lot of people demanded for boycott of that film. They were
I mean,
really
I've had
angry at
so
that
many
movie.
Palestinian friends or Arab
Yeah.
friends that wrote to me and they're like, "Did you see Superman?" But I would also say this, like, I think,
Mhm.
I think what's really fascinating to me in being in conversation, especially with, like, American audiences, and when I see people
Mhm.
on the left even that are talking about this, there is this idea that the film industry is creative and separate, like as if it has its own voice that's commenting on society. Nobody thinks that, looks at it like, no, this is actually run by the Pentagon and the CIA. Like, they have the final say on all. It's not a
And
separate.
okay, I have a little more nuanced opinion on that, but yes,
And so
please
because
continue.
of
I'll
that,
just in mind.
taking
Yeah.
that into
Mhm.
consideration, like, nobody also thinks about how when Superman makes $250,000 in the opening weekend, the film's already been paid for. That money doesn't pay for the film. The film was paid for. That money goes to the Pentagon and the CIA. It's the fastest way for them to transfer money from the public sector to the private sector. So all these people that are like, I'm going to go see it because it supports Palestine, are just giving money to the military complex. And that's, I mean, that's, and because those are the films I work on, are these blockbuster films, and the scripts literally go to these people. Like, they're reviewed and reviewed and reviewed and reviewed. So there is a messaging that they are controlling. Like, they're not, and it goes through test audiences. So if there are test audiences that would have said, oh, I thought this is Palestine, that will be reflected on and considered. And so that's my only thing, is that to me, a lot of these things are
Yes,
like,
I mean,
things away from it, but
I
it
fully
is
agree.
actually a tool to get that money from people, and they don't mind the speculation because it's still within the realm of speculation. It's not confirmed that it was making that statement. And even James Gunn didn't want to make that statement, and he's a Zionist. So.
No, but then again, I will say, the main lead is an anti-Zionist, right? So those things apart, the personality politics aside, again, the political economy of filmmaking aside too, because we have been boycotting. Like in my household, we boycott Hulu, Disney, Netflix. We boycott these things. So it's not like we are actively invested in spending. And these movies, like Todd said, not necessarily legally we watch them, and the kids, they actually use, they pirate them anyway, so that it's not like they're paying money for
But
that.
Saswat, are you
So that
saying? Wait,
happens.
are you saying that
Yes.
the fact that the lead in the film Superman is an anti-Zionist, or the lead or Fantastic Four, which film I don't know which one you were talking.
Yeah.
So,
Fantastic
but
Four.
the fact
Fantastic Four.
that Pascal is an anti-Zionist,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to me,
doesn't mean
Yeah.
doesn't mean a thing. No, which is
Because again, because
just
that sounds like what he used to
like
say in journalism about all the journalists are liberal, but that's irrelevant if all the owners are conservative.
No,
And the
exactly.
ad
So my
buyers.
statement was my statement was a response to saying to the statement of Sam, which said that James Gunn is a Zionist. So I said these people's personal politics aside, because I mean, for let's say tomorrow James Gunn signs this letter, against apartheid, it doesn't absolve him of anything. So I am not talking about that, because I am even concerned about his 11-year-old post. So I am not forgiving of him at all. So that part aside, what I am saying is what Sartre used to say, that a writer has rights over their writing, not the rights over the
Yes,
interpretation of the writing.
understand.
So
Yeah.
so the interpretation of this movie, if people are able to take anything out of this, I mean, and if it is able to provide any amount of hope to some people, especially, I mean, we can, of course, say that the hope is misplaced and all that stuff, but I viewed that movie, till the end. I Because of the timing of its release, this is a time when any of very slight disruptions are making the Zionists extremely uncomfortable. This is a time when some singer goes up the stage after
Right.
like 4 hours performance and $1 million draws, and then she says, free Palestine, and that's all we are like waiting to hear. Will the singer say free Palestine? Just a single statement. And I think people are recharged with some kind of validation, because the opposite of it puts us in a very inconvenient spot. People are losing their jobs, and people are being targeted and doxxed, and we go through hell. So if somebody tries to validate the movement, we feel little hopeful. And Superman to some extent did that for a temporary period. It did that, just like Starbucks ban. Look at Starbucks ban. I always keep saying Starbucks doesn't even operate in Israel. Starbucks has not a single store in Israel. Why the hell are you guys boycotting Starbucks? But the fact that, I mean, these people are drawn with a common theme of like anti in other words, the pro Palestine is somewhat equated with anti Starbucks. So okay, go with it, whatever if makes you feel good, that okay, we are winning a victory and Starbucks is closing stores, we are stepping forward one step at a time. So it makes you feel anything very in the creative space, things are not so cut and dry, like you said about CIA and Pentagon. In Hollywood there is a huge tradition of anti-fascism and anti-authoritarianism, the script writing, the people, if you look up the blacklisted script writers, the Hollywood 10, I mean, these people are Jewish people.
Yeah,
Most
but
of them
that's
are
the
actually Jewish
point.
people,
But
but
that's
they're
why they
hardcore
got
hard.
blacklisted
Yes,
back
yes,
then. They got punished back
yeah.
then. And since then, there's
Hmm.
not been any similar
Not much, yeah,
revival of those
not much, but then,
politics. So it's like
You
people
see
were
but
tossed
okay,
in their
so
place,
meaning.
and the industry learned its lesson, refashioned its approach, got rid of
back,
the radicals, and replaced them with plenty of Jews
And,
and others who
yes,
will write the military story.
and I
yes,
also want to
yes,
unequalize
back then also they
but there
had
is
those people were being doxxed.
no, but
Sorry, yeah.
I do want to add something, because it's not just about the opinion shaping that the audiences can interpret it. There is actually material damage, because these films make money and invest money in military development. The software that we use is for drone technology. The like that little robot, they were talking about how they actually built a real robot. They did not need to build a real robot. They could have done it in 3D. These are all ways of funneling money that they don't have to disclose as Pentagon budgets. So I agree that, like, yes, maybe people can take inspiration from these things, but there's a material element that when you are putting $250,000 of like money on, and the other thing is, with all the problematic aspects, I do think we need to start reevaluating culture that we get our inspiration from, that we should be encouraging. Look, I really hate saying this, because like I mean, I don't just say this as a fan. Like, this was my life, this was my career, like this was everything. I gave everything I had to this career, and I sacrificed, like, when I look back, and I sacrificed a lot to get to where I was. Like, it was not like, and I don't know if at this stage in my life that I would have made the same decisions, but I invested because I believed so much in this craft, and I wanted to be a part of it. So I just really want to say that because I don't dismiss these things lightly, and I don't attack them lightly. It's just that it's more than, like, I think that's the thing, is that it's not just a culture war. This is part of an apparatus, and people seem to have a clearer idea when they're talking about things like I don't know, like what that commercial was that came out a while ago, some DNA racist commercial for blue jeans or something. You know, and people angry about it, and they're like, that's harmful.
Of course.
Maybe some people really love commercials. People watch commercials.
No, it's not about those people, but it was not about those people. No, this is a different. I'm coming from a very different line. I'm not saying that getting impressed. First of all, I mean, you know, among four of us, if somebody has watched the least amount of Hollywood mainstream cinema, that is me. It will be very difficult to convince me to go and sit down through Superman or any of these movies, by the way. And I've never seen another Superman film before, by the way. This was my first introduction to Superman. So my expectation was extremely low, which is why I was very overjoyed at it, right? So my expectation was extremely low. But that aside, I fully understand where you're coming from and the technology part. What I will still say is this, that let's say this is a Hegelian dialectics part. So we have technology. Right now we are using Mac. You know how much Apple is invested in. Apple is not withdrawing from Israel, by the way. So we are here, we are using this, we are paying money to these people. So are we going to get rid of it? No. What we got to do is, this is a cat and mouse game. We are the little mice. We have to keep winning our little wars. From time to time we have to do that. So whenever we see any kind of, and this is literally, you know, I saw somebody posting a poster of Taylor Swift. I mean, it's a fake meme saying that Taylor Swift is saying free Palestine and blah, blah. She has never said it. But we try to create that because there are so many Taylor Swift supporters. Why don't we make people, you know, get into the illusion that, you know, some star is celebrating them, you know, some star is, you know, endorsing them, just to flip the narrative little bit at a time, because this is such a difficult, daunting task in front of us.
Yeah.
So including Hollywood, everybody is against us, right? So we are trying to, you know, find some kind of what we call like a straw in the wind kind of situation. So to that extent. Otherwise, all of us, let's not be under any illusion that the technology that we use today, any form, that Apple headphone I was using, anything, this T-shirt I'm using, all of these are complicit in the genocide, in the complicit against global South. We are all part and parcel to it. None of us are, you know, we cannot claim to be that. But while we are doing it, if I have access to technology, how do I use it? That is the bigger question than just to, you know, be endlessly condemned for using the technology. You know, Jared has excellent infrastructure there. How is he using that infrastructure? That is very important. So when we watch Superman, if we just remain in that thing that, okay, Hollywood is owned by businesses and corporate interests, that in itself is not, I don't think it is a very productive way to look at, because see, society, you know, what Marx used to say about individual consciousness and the environment is that your individual consciousness is not likely going to, you know, eradicate the environment. It is the other way around. The environment is there. We have to interpret, we have to, you know, capture it. Any kind of spark, and every revolution requires sparks, different sparks. Any spark we see, we grab it. And this is why that song, not even a song, a statement, you know, like death to the IDF. I mean, just one sentence, and we want to capture it. We want to hold on to it. We don't want to see, you know, where.
Yeah, but they're so different.
Sorry?
Like I agree with you in the sense that, like, let's say someone like myself or my colleagues, if we use the skills that we got from Hollywood and we make these sparkly films for the resistance, and that's like what these singers and songwriters are doing. They're using their talent and redirecting it. My argument is that when we make these films, and films like Superman, we wanted this outcome. This is what I'm trying to say, is that these people wanted people to think that it's pro-Palestine. They wanted to,
which is good.
No.
Exactly the point.
They wanted that target, like in the same, they wanted to commodify it in the same way that we see like women being portrayed in these films, that they're like patriarchal, natalist driven, all about like the white woman providing children. Like that birth scene was just nuts in the, you know, and it's all about preserving the baby and having a baby and being a badass fight, like a male woman.
You
a
didn't
woman
like seeing the baby in the womb
I'm
from
just wondering
inside
where
the invisibilized
plasma went
womb?
at the end of that. Like, did it stay invisible and it's just this plasma's like floating around or something? Like that was
No, but I don't think James Gunn really wanted people to believe that his movie is pro-Palestine. I don't think.
but what
I
I'm
mean,
saying is that
considering you
we're
were saying he's a Zionist,
targeting
that was not his intention. But when
no,
people
but we're
listen, so
targeting you to
when we
get
can
that
show we can show middle finger to Israel by talking about this film, when we can irritate the hell out of them, we can annoy them, make them feel like shit. Then we will do that. That is the point. Is if
yeah.
even if, let's say, Madonna. I mean, Madonna has not been very kind to any of us. Now if now if she's telling the Pope that, hey, you have to got to do this last blah blah, we will appropriate Madonna. We will
But
appropriate any and every big
yes.
celebrity. In fact, these big celebrities are people who are staying in the residing in the heads of most of the people. So we want to address that.
So I
At
guess
very emotional
so
level, we want to
basically what
connect to
you're
those people by using their
so
own.
basically
This
it's
is
like
like
saying
stabbing.
like if you took gun laws, like if you took guns in the States, and let's say the majority of people that have guns are white people that are very dangerous. But then you're basically saying, well, we should just buy more guns and support the gun industry so that the white people are afraid
No,
of the
no.
other
Well,
That's
wait a
that's
second.
that,
Wait a
that's
second.
not the
Sounds
gun.
right. Hold
See,
on one
the
second. Can I
gun.
just?
See,
There's a key difference that I see between what both of you are saying here.
because
Is
you're
that
making the society feel uncomfortable, but you're supporting the system. You're supporting the system and just making the Zionist people on the street uncomfortable. That's all that it's achieving.
but the key difference
No,
the key
I think.
difference that I'm seeing between what both of you are saying is that Saswat, you're talking about from the perspective of a motivated or impacted celebrity or artist responding to the zeitgeist of a people and then coming out with some progressive or positive statement or act. What I'm hearing coming from Samantha and as I'm understanding it is that you're trying to apply that previous assessment to a product produced by the military state apparatus specifically to draw that energy away. So the key difference would be if that artist that you're referencing, for instance, if I'm thinking of the right one that performed in some English event this past summer, and they come out and say death to the IDF or whatever, and but the key difference is that if that band had been the literal artistic creation of the state apparatus put there to perform that with the idea that an audience will be attracted to that and then look for their political solution or response to that to come from that group. And because the way I keep seeing it is we get invited
Yeah,
to a certain symbolic act, and
I
then
think that happens.
the politics of that performance or performer is something very different than what is needed to actually address the problem. So it's
Yes.
okay.
I mean, if you go back to another very existential question about can we separate the art from the artist and whatnot, I think we are also addressing that at the same time. Let's say John Lennon. I mean, he had complicated personal lifestyle, and we know about Lennon versus USA documentary. We have seen how even CIA was involved in his this thing. But John Lennon in his personal life or his wife, I mean, they used to own so many properties, and John Lennon's in his during his first like first marriage had also accusations of domestic violence. There were all kinds of complicated situations with him, and yet I think Imagine as a song, as a poem has given life to lots of movement across the world, which also needs to be acknowledged. I think
I don't know
I
if
mean, if we
I don't know how you would
I
assess
think
that
yeah,
because if a
I
lot
don't
of
know,
very
man.
liberal people are singing
I
Imagine and then
am
they're going to sip their
no, it's
lattes and
not
voting for
liberal.
Kamala
but
No,
Harris.
I don't think
I can I
well, first of all, Imagine as a song is not a liberal stuff.
I'm not
When
talking about the
you
song.
go
To
through
your
the
point,
words,
quoting
yeah,
Sartre, right? It's the
yes, yeah,
interpretation. And
hmm
if a bunch of liberals are singing in a
yes.
park, singing Imagine, the same way a lot of liberals were in audience with their fists up singing "Fight the Power" in our generation, it doesn't mean that they're going to go. What they mean by "Fight the Power" is I'm going to. It doesn't.
No, singing, but
Okay.
no, but Jared, singing of Imagine. Listen, so singing of Imagine in today's age is different, but singing of Imagine during anti-Vietnam War had its a very different dynamic. So likewise, you can say free Palestine after after like 50 years.
Right.
It probably won't make much sense. Right now, we need people to come up with that. We need people to reinterpret, even to so to say, to like present it throughout the social media as a way of disrupting the mainstream status quo, and in whichever forms it comes. And I will say this: a lot of like Palestinian social media content creators and journalists in Gaza have shared Superman with very with all their good intentions, and I'm definitely going to support those posts. I am not going to supersede them with my like critical knowledge of Hollywood. I'm definitely going to support
Nobody's,
the, if it is giving
but
them
that's
hope, I
not
am
the
all for
point.
it. If
Nobody's
no, no,
saying
no,
to
no,
do
no, no,
that.
I'm telling no,
Right.
let's say Superman as a movie could have gone the other way. I mean, it would have projected a very different picture at the end of it, even if it's whichever way you want to put it, like Hollywood is making money. If the story itself, the script itself, could have been written differently, so as to portray the people as the bad ones who started some kind of a rebellion, and hence they deserved the genocide. That story could have
But
been
that
there.
Go ahead,
Unfortunately, that
Samantha.
story
Go
was
ahead.
Well,
not
I'm
there.
sorry.
well, two things, like,
Go ahead.
just as a quick thing, that wasn't even the main point of the story, right? Like, even Superman himself was not involved in overthrowing. That was a sort of a side story that was there to legitimize that Superman knows best, that the Americans know best about how to handle world power. Superman's story was not like the final thing with that. That was a side, like, I'm just saying, even from a screenplay writing, that was actually like
I mean,
a
that was still the climax. That was the whole end point of the movie.
No, the
The
end point
liberation
was
of
him
people.
taking
No?
on Ultraman. They gave more fight time to it. They gave more. It was his personal journey, him confronting his negative self, him overcoming the mythology of his British conquering parents and adopting the American way. That was the main thing, because the secondary
Okay.
characters went
See, there
their
you go. So I viewed it very
so
differently. I
it,
think this is
but
where
yeah,
this is where
but
the
the other
yeah,
thing I want
because
to
I
point
was
out,
I was very desperately looking for that element, right? That
that's
element in
why
which I would see
That's
Netanyahu
why.
shattered. So
That's why
my
we
whole
target.
fantasy
That's
was that,
what I'm saying.
and
Like,
I saw that.
you're the target. You're the target audience. When we make these films, we
Yeah,
know
yeah,
who we're targeting.
happily. I mean,
But
happily.
the
But
other
then, but
thing
then,
is,
but then,
but there's a
audience,
difference. There's
you
a
you you you
difference
still
between
you
what
still
you're,
cannot
the
be
examples you're giving, because these films
correct,
are not
correct,
made by one artist, and the
correct,
story is not written by one artist. It's actually
and
written
then
by over 100 people, just
okay.
deciding how the commercial is going to be. So it's not a vision of a person, it's a vision of a project. And
Okay,
that's
but then
also a
but then
different
audience
thing.
audience cannot be removed from the equation. You see, the audience. I mean, I am legit very I mean, when I watch Bollywood, I grew up in Bollywood movies. Man, there is not a movie where I do not cry like 4 times while watching the movie. I cry all the time. I cry. If I'm the audience, if I'm the audience, then convince me otherwise, because we cannot be all these media theorists in ivory whatever houses, and seeing that okay, these people are not getting making sense of it. If we are getting this, then James Gunn is defeated, then the Zionist Hollywood is defeated, if we are getting the different interpretation out of it. So
See,
our
I
But
interpretation
let
is
me
feel
but
our
let me but let me
interpretation is
ask a
as
I
question here.
feel
valid.
like
No,
this
because
Let me
is
because
let
where
because
me
it's
because then
hard,
you
because
you
I
cannot
know what
you cannot
techniques they
you
use
cannot
to
have the
make
cake and
these.
eat it too, right? You cannot
but let
have
me
the
ask
cake
a
and eat it
question
too.
if I
Hollywood,
can.
if the listen, so if James Gunn is a Zionist,
I
and
mean, it doesn't really
so
matter.
no,
Like,
I'm saying, if James Gunn is a Zionist, then his agenda has got defeated, because Superman, no matter where you go, whatever review you read, there people are drawing parallel to it with Palestinian resistance
no,
movement. It
but
is being given
his
parallel. So
relevance
so
of
his
being,
agenda is defeated. I think I'm
no, but
happy with
that
that.
wasn't
I'm
his
not his fan.
agenda.
I'm fan of the
It's not his
people
agenda.
who are looking for
The thing is,
inspiration.
the reason I said that is because
Mhm.
he won't have the job if he was in a position that he could notice these problems. It's always going to be people that think in that way.
but but then whenever we make such a statement, what happens is we are again centering him, right? We are centering these people in power. I'm trying to center the people
He's
who are
not
at
the
the
one in
receiving end of
power.
it. No, I'm
That's not
centering the
what's happening,
audience.
Saswat. I think you missed something
Please tell
here.
me.
The
Okay.
centering, as I'm hearing it, and then
Mhm.
Todd, please ask your question. But the centering is, as I'm hearing it, the centering is not
Mhm.
one man. It's a project. It's a process. It's an institution
Mhm.
that has a very immediate interest in manipulating the sentiment of the people in the audience. If a
So
liberal,
did that mhm. did that manipulation work in the
Yep.
case of Superman? No,
yes,
not
I
in
think it
Yes.
Fantastic
did.
Four.
That's why, because
Okay,
like when
so
I
if
looked
it
at it, and
did,
this
if
is
it did,
horrible.
if it did, no, listen, if it did, so which means the industry, Hollywood wanted people to develop a sense of empathy towards Palestinians. Is
No,
that what you're
no,
saying?
No,
they
Then
want
what?
no, no,
Then what?
no. So that's why it's a little more
no.
nuanced. I see a little bit
Okay,
more nuance in that. They wanted
okay.
they wanted people who would want to see an
Hmm.
affinity for Palestinians to see it contextualized in a way that will not inspire a radical response, that will look for
And
the
There
savior
is
to
there.
still be coming from the
No,
liberal
no.
wing of
See,
the
see.
ruling
Nobody.
elite.
No. I don't think anyone is under the illusion that a filmmaker will go and defeat
Mm.
Netanyahu. Nobody's under that illusion. My point
I
is
don't
the
know if I agree with
audience.
that part
No,
either.
no. Well, I don't think I am expecting James Gunn to go and kill Netanyahu. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the people. The people. Listen, the people. We are doing a couple of things at the same time. We will. I think at one point we'll go to that. The Kamala Harris book event, right? So when people are heckling Kamala Harris, the heckling part does not defeat Israel. What it does, though, it revives a dialogue among people. It makes people feel the controversy. We want those controversies in all shape and form. They may not immediately achieve anything, but we want to annoy the heck out of those people. We want to irritate the Zionists every way possible. And Superman movie achieved that. That part we cannot deny. Now, Superman movie was made by bad people.
I
Hollywood
can
was
deny
all
that.
about
I
I
don't
money.
can
All
agree
those
deny
with
part I
that.
it. I
understand.
can deny.
All those part I
Well, I'd
understand.
like to
So
see
I'm
the
I'm I'm just
results
sticking
and
to
watch
this
I
the
don't.
part. I'm
results.
sticking to this
Can
part.
I can I
I'm just
can I
Todd, ask your question. Please
I
ask
just
your
want to jump
question.
in. I just want to jump in with some geek stuff, but I think it's very relevant to what the three of you are saying. All right, we're in an interesting situation here because James Gunn, who I think is trying to make up for, by the way, for those tweets from 10, 12 years ago, by the way, I think he's trying to make up
yeah,
for
yeah,
it.
yeah. Mhm.
He is not only the writer and director of Superman and the writer and director of Peacemaker, and I want to get to Peacemaker with my question. I just want to also point out he's head of DC.
Yep. He's a
So
Yeah,
he
CEO.
is
yeah. He is the
right. So he
CEO.
is charting a direction. And I'm looking at the direct now. Maybe I'm just, I'm a comic geek, so maybe I'm naive. But as a media scholar or former media scholar, I don't know what I am anymore. I call myself former everything at this point. I noticed though, but what he's putting, these ideas that he's putting in the products, right? So Superman, we can argue whether it's anti-Zionist or not, and I think that's a healthy argument to have. I think the visuals speak a bit stronger than the content in terms of that. But let's look at Peacemaker for a second. It's about a ne'er-do-well character who in the second season finds an alternative reality where he's a great hero. He has a better relationship with his dad. His brother that he killed accidentally is still alive. So his wannabe girlfriend is his girlfriend. So he wants to stay in this alternative reality. And yet we find out that alternative reality is one in which the Nazis control the United States because they won World War II. And this episode that just aired pointed out that he didn't notice that because as a white male, he wasn't paying attention to anything around him other than himself and his family
Correct.
and how he's doing. And it's the people of color that have the discussion about, well, what does that say about him? Now,
Correct.
I think that's interesting coming out of the head of a major corporation. I just think that's interesting. I don't know whether it's
No, it's true.
powerful,
True.
whether
True. True.
but I think just even asking those questions is interesting because there's a point in Peacemaker where the Nazi people, right, the superhero Nazi people, said, "I looked into your reality and I thought it was a dark version of ours." Right, so he's even making the critique that the people on the non-Nazi side, our side, are not in a position to even critique the side where the Nazis won because we have similar problems and similar delusions. I think that James Gunn, as a white man who is a artist and who is a CEO, is trying to grapple with the contradictions of American society. Now,
Also, don't
Yeah.
forget he's worked with the Pentagon,
Pentagon.
his Marvel things. There's lots of articles about him in the Pentagon and stuff that he even tweeted about. So he also has a history, like this is why he was put in charge of these films.
No, absolutely. I mean, Hollywood cannot be trusted. I am not asking anyone to trust any part of Hollywood. What I'm saying is, if they are being imposed upon us, then if we are finding, in fact, it would be a victory of another, higher level if we are able to twist and manipulate them and show a different picture to them than they originally intended for it to be seen as. So we have to
Except
control
that
that
your
narrative,
reaction
and
is
the
what
moment
they
the
want.
moment we control and say, here is why I am trying to appropriate the Palestinian like social media
But I
content
am Palestinian.
content creators. What I'm
Like,
saying is, I'm like going back to them. I'm saying, okay, if they're showing it, this must be it. And then when you say that time and again, it is insulting to James Gunn himself. Because let's say James Gunn did not want this to be interpreted this way. He's saying, oh, these people are hijacking my superhero for their good. Okay, well, we are
I,
doing that then. Because
I,
if it's making them
I
uncomfortable, we are
think
more for
you're,
it.
I
Anything to
think
bring them
you're,
discomfort.
I think you're looking at
Little,
it
little. Mhm.
too small. Like
I
the
am, I
main.
am, I am, I am not glorifying the Hollywood.
No. But what I
I'm not
mean is
forgiving.
that
I'm not.
the
Hold on,
underlying
Saswat. Hold on, hold
reason,
on, hold on.
Yes,
it's
yes.
not about Palestine because it could be any country. What it is about is American hegemony. And we all know that Israel is a part of, it's like America's bulldog. It's all part of this apparatus. If Israel falls, what is important to America is that America still stands and that empire still stands. And all of these films are about reinforcing that. So they can throw you little bones to argue about things and give them money. But these are the underlying messages that get repeated and reinforced and reinforced and reinforced and
Okay,
reinforced.
agreed. I
And
fully
so
agree. But
that's a
see,
win for them. And the CIA
but
even
see,
explicitly says that they are willing to compromise certain things, to compromise certain like immediate events or different things, as long as the overall American agenda is constantly reinforced in people's minds. The
okay,
individualism is constantly reinforced in people's minds. The white
agreed.
saviorism is constantly reinforced in people's minds. So that's why I'm saying
I know. So, but
it's
see,
not significant.
yes. So CIA had never thought that they would be interpreted in a negative way by the world, because CIA, in its own very noblest intention, they thought that they will be considered as this hero of the world when they started. That was the whole idea, that KGB are the bad guys, we are the good guys. Today, hardly there is anyone who thinks CIA is the good guys. Now, who made it happen? Despite all these billions of dollars propaganda that CIA threw all over the world, the global South people suspect CIA very highly. What my point is, we should not discount the people's emotions attached to these movies.
Okay, so I
If they
have
are able to listen, just for a minute. So if we no matter what their intention was in making Superman, that is one aspect of it. That is not the whole thing. The other part, the audience reception, and this is where Jared and Todd, maybe from media studies, critical media studies background, would know about Stuart Hall talking about audience reception, not about bullet theory. Bullet theory is what the propaganda is putting in your head. Then it kept on evolving into uses and gratification and all that stuff. But right now, the final stage we are understanding is audience reception, in which the interpretation of the audience, depending on their respective social locations, that must decide the message's value. So if
I
I'm a person who is brown, straight, and like partially disabled, if I have certain social locations, from those social locations, if I am understanding something, that will be different from your social location, from where you to understand. So what I am trying to say, my interpretations, if that is anyway helpful, the helpfulness can be various ways. One can be very crooked, mean spirited way, in which just to annoy the heck out of the bad guys. Another is maybe it can be used productively in some kind of a social movement. We don't know about that. But if that can make the ruling class uncomfortable in any manner, then I will amplify that. I know that
okay,
is
well,
not the in
All
and
right.
in and
I've
itself
worked with the
solution.
Go,
ruling
That is all.
class, and I know they're laughing at you. And the argument,
That's
so
that, that
let's
that's
say,
fine. Of course, they're laughing at
hold
me.
on,
They are
Saswat. Hold
laughing
on,
at
hold
me
on,
every day.
Saswat. Hold on, hold
They are
on,
laughing
hold
at
on,
me. Of
like,
course,
Saswat.
that is not
Saswat,
a new
please,
thing.
please,
but
please,
Yeah.
please.
there is a third psychological thing that I just want to present, is that it could also be there so that you have your revolutionary vicariousness lived through watching this movie, and it pacifies you. There is no evidence.
It doesn't pacify me. Why do you think it pacifies me?
Sasquatch.
It's not. On the
Pacify
contrary.
you, and it might not pacify your friends, but I can tell you from having worked in these spaces and being more in liberal spaces, because I didn't do my undergrad in all of this and I worked in this industry, these people are not taking action. And I would just like to know if it did do a significant difference. I just checked, it's like $615 million that it's now made at the box office. Are there $615 million worth of American people that have been taking action for Palestine? Like all of that money, all of those tickets? Because to me, maybe it did inspire some people, but we're talking about, I don't know, maybe a few
No,
thousand.
I never suggested a causation association. I'm not suggesting that people who watch a movie, they will go and commit an action. I never said that.
Sasquatch, hold on a second, because Sasquatch, hold on a second, Sasquatch, hold on a second, because you didn't make a one-to-one, causal argument, but you were suggesting, I heard the suggestion that audience are enacting agency in a way that is contradicting the intent of the industry, and I think, and with all due respect to Stuart Hall, I do not agree that audience agency is some organized radical phenomenon that can withstand the massive amounts of propaganda being evolved and imposed globally and directed at varieties of populations. In fact, in the intervening years since Stuart Hall's unfortunate death, there and insufficient study, there has been an increased ability in those who rule to accumulate media resources and penetrative capability to manipulate audiences and further evolve their own agenda and organized ability and resourced and platformed and politically supported ability to manipulate our public opinion. So I think whatever audiences, so your astute analysis is framed through a certain politics, as would be the case for audiences all over the world. Unfortunately, too few people around the world are in your intellectual political space, as would be the case for the most of us, and are in
So you don't believe that there is a growing distrust of mainstream media since Stuart Hall's
but what
demise?
it's not that there's I wouldn't say that there has not been a growing distrust, but to say that there's a growing distrust and then to extrapolate from that distrust is critically, radically organized and prepared to, that's because equally the distrust has gone in very right-wing conservative white supremacist directions as well, which has led in many ways back to the book Todd encouraged me to read some time ago through Meme Wars, to have a very conservative white right wing come right back around into power after decades of all this liberal media being produced by a liberal Hollywood. So again, the intent,
correct, which is extremely
for whatever
valid.
Stuart Hall was right about, and others who agree with him were right about, I think an under amount of attention, it is still underappreciated and attended in terms of focus to the intent of those who rule and how they are looking to manipulate us in the ways that I think Samantha is helping us to see. And so that you and any number of other radicals around the world would be having some sort of relatively positive response, I don't think outweighs the massive amounts of people who are being encouraged in any number of different political directions and methods of interpretation. And very lastly, for all this,
I think my point was very limited.
For all this stuff about the CIA,
yes,
and the way they're viewed in the world, to Samantha's point, if I understood you correctly, Samantha, all of these CIA films, these Zero Dark 30s and all of these, whatevers, they do very well financially. There is a large global audience for these films, and to suggest that they're all interpreting it in a way that in some consciously radical way leads to an appropriate distrust of the U.S. state, I think is doing too much. All right, let me stop.
No, I mean, okay, so if you look at any General Assembly voting in the United Nations, we know how popular CIA opinions are. The entire world, 98% of the world rejects USA like thoroughly. So let's not remain in that illusion that CIA is succeeding. It is not succeeding at all. The CIA's only purpose is to make people convinced that the USA is right. And in that only purpose, it is failing drastically. Number two, the limited point I was making about this movie was not about the history and stuff. Only thing was the timing of its release coincided with what was actively going on in Gaza, which was a very active concentration camp of people, very helplessly suffering. They were not being having access to humanitarian aid, the food trucks. They were not having, and they were just dying. And this is the literal situation. It's like a concentration camp. In this movie, whenever that scene used to come up, there is nothing to do with Ukraine. Ukraine's situation is not that. The reason why some Israelis might be saying Ukraine, because they know very well that it is about them and they don't want to admit to that. It's a cognitive dissonance. But the people who are watching it with any amount of knowledge about Palestine happening on their social media reels, which is to say why it's making so much money, because a lot of young people went to see this movie. This is the same young people, the so-called Gen Z people who went to see this movie, because they relate more with Palestine than with Ukraine. To put it very bluntly. And these guys, they kept writing and rehashing about this. And you can ask your own children about it, and they will tell you if they saw Palestine in the movie or not. The answer is very vehemently yes. Now, whether it made movie, of course it made movie. Just like let's say Bob Dylan songs made make a lot of movie, make a lot of money. And Bob Dylan song is also used by, let's say, British Airways. But how we make sense of that song and how we put it in civil rights perspective, that is up to us. And then I mean, this one song or one film is not going to make any changes, but these are part and parcel of the collective human experiences. I am not going to discount the people who are amplifying this. And because I am very much emotionally, I mean, 24 hours a day I'm attached to them. And when I see they're saying it, I'm going to amplify it in that way, not through my critical media theory way. I won't watch this movie. I don't watch Hollywood. I mean, I can show you my movie collection here. I mean, like I literally have these DVDs and stuff. None of these are Hollywood. They're anything but Hollywood. I detest Hollywood movies. I detest the superhero. The concept I told you from the beginning, individualism. So I don't wait for any superhero. But in this movie, in that particular time, that last climax scene, I was not even paying attention to the rest of the movie. That climax scene, people did feel like, Netanyahu was lost. And that is all I was saying. That particular time period, nothing else. The timing of the movie, that's some scenes, that's all. I mean, whether we are emotionally played, I mean, come on, man, we get played every single. I voluntarily get played by all kinds of movies. I mean that that is. I'm not going to claim that I'm this a guy who is above all this. I'm not. I know I get played, but this part I will extrapolate just to make some jam, just to annoy the heck out of some people. That's all. That is the only point of this. Nothing beyond it.
But social
I don't see
vengeance, like among the people that we're passing on the street, isn't going to change the bigger problem.
I don't know. You don't know. We don't know. See, let's not pass judgment as to whether they will be able to change it. I can say.
I'm a Palestinian. My father's a Nakba survivor, and I worked on these films.
Every revolution.
Like it's not just like I'm not an
every revolution.
Member.
Nepal happened right now. Nepal. Some Gen Z kids did it. They destroyed, they attacked, they killed, they murdered politicians right on the broad daylight. Now these things happen. Gen Z also does it. See, we don't know what will spark what. At times we get very sure of ourselves. I don't think we should be. There are different things, different creative ways things happen.
But that's why, to me, that's a perfect example.
Again, a very
Wait a minute. I bet. Are you saying those kids watch Superman?
Yes.
Because I'm saying those kids were probably.
No. Maybe they did.
Maybe they did. I'm saying those kids are probably like you and did not. And that those who watch Superman who might have an affinity for those politics would feel like the individualism and the heroism of the state-sponsored superheroes is what we end up needing. The liberal wing of the ruling elite will come and actually satisfy my interest in seeing the Palestinians be saved. That's the point I think you're missing. That I'm saying
See,
the goal.
Fanon says
okay,
that.
forget.
Fanon says to avoid another
Forget about
the
Superman.
ruling class always tries to take the first step and preempt it and do something to capitalize.
Can we let's say this. Can we talk about Hamas? The great word Hamas. People don't talk about it. Okay. Now Hamas. How do you interpret it? Hamas's resistance. Do you think most people support Hamas? Of course they don't. Now let me tell you. Let me bring you back a little bit further. Hamas was funded by Netanyahu himself.
I know that.
Hamas, the money is okay. Hamas is headquartered in Qatar with the really oil money, right? And Hamas resistance is still valid. My point is we have to look beyond the obvious stuff. There are
Saswat, you're again making my point.
Different
Saswat,
creative
no,
ways.
hold on.
See,
Nepal, Saswat, you're making my point. You're equating an organized, politically conscious, militant wing of a movement with a disorganized, disparate global audience who is and expecting that similar forms of interpretation would that's my entire point.
No. In fact,
Hamas possible
Jared,
is the
Hamas is not considered
organized entity. That is what is lacking in the broader
Hamas
audience of a Superman film.
No, but then Hamas is not considered to be this very consciously organized political movement. You see, that is not only extremely disorganized. When that thing started, I mean, because the election was ended like several decades ago, so these Hamas kids were really little small kids, so it was completely disorganized, completely like what Nepal situation that you are seeing now. So now and yet it is also true at the same time that they had received money from Netanyahu. So both of these things can coexist, and still there will be revolutionary sparks. I am not going to discount the possibility based on my limited understanding of the world. What I am saying is there will be the sparks of revolutions are unknown. Even in Russian Revolution, in before Lenin stepped into that movement, there were different minor revolutions which are already taking place. Some were pretty much led by the petty bourgeoisie groups. So there will be these things will happen. There will be space for all these reactionaries as well as very studied progressive groups. There will be some redeeming from the right-wing rebels themselves too, because a lot of people are angry at this time all over the world for various reasons. We can discount their politics, but we cannot discount the source of their anger.
Nobody's doing that. I think you're not. I think you're not hearing. I feel like you're not hearing my point.
But then those are the people. Those are the most people who also watch
But
Superman.
I also think that these films are like,
those people.
From what you're saying, it makes me even feel that Superman is even more effective as a manipulation tool, because guess who's the only group of people that are not filling the streets like Italy did, or like we're seeing across the world in the global south? It's America and Canada, the target audience of these superhero films. This is the most pacified, non-resisting people compared to European.
No. Actually, not true. Not most of the Italy did it now.
No, but they're not the
for some time it's doing.
Superman.
But listen, no. In America, it has not been such a pacifying way. People have, thousands of students have been deported because of this. People have lost jobs. People have been violently beaten up in New York City here every single week. People are being blooded and being brutalized by the police right in front of us. So no. This reaction is there all over the world now. It is getting normalized. The idea, my thing is, we have to go. Beyond a movie or beyond a book. This is at a very if at a very fundamental thought level. If we want to see any imagery, no matter how who is feeling that feeling and making us manipulating us, the imagery of it, if it is that a majority of people being oppressed and colonized, and a minority of people who are militarily had been controlling them, between these two, good boys and good guys and bad guys, if we see that the good guys, the majority, are winning at the end of it, I think it is a very positive message. We need this message. I'm not a big positive thinking person, but I think this message is meant to, I mean, we need to appropriate it to fill up the vacuum that the other part,
Again,
But
Saswat,
then the
I'm not,
message
you're
that
not, this is the part of,
is
this is where I
providing to
really
us. We
feel like
need
you're
to
not
do
hearing
that.
what I'm saying. I'm not arguing about what radical
Yes.
members of society should try to do in response to an imposed piece of art. I'm not debating that. I'm where I'm disagreeing with you is well, in some of the claims I think you're making about the impact or the lack thereof, and and the lack of focus on the
Yeah.
intent. And again, this has always been a thing with me since graduate school, since being introduced to Stuart Hall's work and all of that. I very much appreciate his argument, and it was definitely not valued in the academic world as it should be. But I also do side very much so on the side of focusing on the intent of those imposing it more than on the debates around the impact. Because the impact I think is
Which is when then, Jared, which is
so
when
so
then
so to my
you shall
point
be
and to my
centering your
point
power, right?
to my point about the
Your
forms
history
of
will
the
be written by the
resistance
ruling
that we
class
see.
then.
Let me just finish this point, Saswat, real
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
To the
Yes.
so the point is that I'm trying to get at is that to the extent that those who are in the audience of these films want some sort of radical critique or to be in defense of the Palestinian people and other oppressed communities, there is a goal among those in the ruling elite to offer some sort of response to that encourages that sentiment be corralled safely into very prescribed and safe outlets, including the forms of protest that people take, and then ultimately, as we can maybe start beginning a segue to what people will do with their electoral political power, so called, or even seeing that as a viable solution in and of itself. And that's where I think you're not giving enough credit
No.
to the power
I
and the
am.
purpose of these films.
No, but I'm very consciously choosing to, allow more power and more agency to the people than to the intent of the ruling class. That why
Oh,
is
we
that
definitely
so?
disagree on that.
No.
I don't. Because that agency is
You can. Of course, you
disorganized.
can. But
Yeah.
listen. So if why? Because then I mean, this is exactly how readings of history has been, either from the ruling class lens or from the people's lens. I will go with the people every single time because ruling class wanted to do certain way, but then people had other things in plan, and this is when the people names we don't even know. They are not the directors of the movie. So this is where that the script will have to be
Where did the
changed.
people go with the
No,
plans
no,
that
no, I'm
was
telling you,
not
Jared,
intended?
Jared,
Where did the
Jared,
people go that wasn't
Jared,
intended,
no, I'm
Saswat?
telling you. So I'm telling you. So the government here, let's say the NYPD here has these rules. You have to ask for permits. You have to go by the street. You have to make this much noise and not more. Blah blah blah. So all these rules are there. So the peaceful protest rules are there. But do not be under the illusion that all the movements that are taking place, all the protests are taking place, are following those rules. In fact, most of them do not, which is why they get beaten up. These people not that they get beaten up accidentally. These people do not ask for permits.
Can
They
I ask a
literally do
question?
not seek permit. So
So,
then, despite what the ruling class has in place, we still find creative ways to disrupt that. We still find
so
other ways to
following
practice
that
that.
logic,
Go ahead.
do you think it was really effective that Trump condemned like Netanyahu sometimes for going too far? Do you think that had a big social impact?
Well, I mean, see, by now nobody believes in Trump, like his words, because if we do that, then we have to start with when he say, I'm going to turn Gaza into, like a little casino, right? So we do not want to believe what he says. But this much I will say that anytime the US administration also condemns Israel, because we want US administration also to condemn Israel, although we know US and Israel have the similar interests. So anytime that is done, then of course that is a kind of a moment to highlight. Hey, see these guys, because these guys, no, see for them, this is what we say is every single confession what they are making, every single like all the crimes they talk about, they are already confessing. So we want that to come out of their own mouth. So if
But
Trump will say,
do you
hey,
see
Netanyahu is a bad guy, if Netanyahu is a bad guy, then of course we feel vindicated. See, the bad guys are revealing themselves, which is fine. Let them do it. Let them do more and more, because
but that
because listen, because we are so tired of seeing Biden and Kamala not saying that. Biden and Kamala literally never ever
okay,
got out of the Israel's clutch, And so Trump is saying, hey, I'm not going to give you guys West Bank. I think that's a great thing for him to say that. We want every president to say that, even if they do not follow that. We know they won't follow that. We know they're a bunch of liars. But we want that statement to be normalized, that West Bank must not belong to Israel. Let every president of America say that.
But then he'll still take it.
Let it come out in the public. It's not coming out in the public enough. That's I'm not saying that's a solution. I'm saying that people, if any, and that he's saying, by the way, that he's saying because of a constant, people's movement that we see all across the globe, including inside the United States. Because Trump had said in the beginning also, Trump and Marco Rubio said, every student, anybody who says anything against Israel, I'll be deporting them, whatever, within this many days. And everybody, it didn't happen. Trump has in fact deported less people than Biden did during the same period last year. Much less people, by the way. Trump has done much less damage to the resistance movement than Biden and Kamala Harris had done, objectively speaking. You see the numbers, you'll be staggered.
That is exactly my point about the Superman film.
Me too, exactly.
That's so wild.
What is the exact point? No. What is it? My point is the same people who paid money to see Superman are the same people who are on the street too.
That's
so
exactly
my point is, if
point.
people can,
it's also an exaggeration. It's also an exaggeration because most of the people who went to see that movie are not in any streets doing any activist work.
I would say, Jared, man, I would say most people today are not, let's say, to put it this way, are not supporting Netanyahu. And most people used to do that a few years ago. That used to be the.
But my point, though, but that's exactly. But this is the crux. But that's why this is the crux of the point for me that I swear to God is super frustrating that you're missing. Is that more people not liking Netanyahu more is an obvious response to this gross genocide. The problem, though, is what is done with that dislike. And that's where these films, not just the ones we're talking about, but these films and associated efforts politically, media-wise, et cetera, are marshaled into play to say, yes, more people are overtly disagreeing with Israel, disagreeing with Netanyahu. Trump has the lowest approval ratings, blah, blah, blah. We hear all of that. But then where do the people get encouraged to go with that? Right back into the liberal wing of the ruling elite and are fed the salve of the liberal wing,
I know what you're saying,
and then they come right back to it. That's what I'm.
They would have gone back regardless of this movie. So this movie is not letting them go back to liberal folds. They're liberals, so they will go back to that fold. So but my thing is, if tomorrow a history book would be written, it will not be written depicting Netanyahu as a good guy. And that has happened because of these relentless efforts by the activists, no matter what kind of practices they did, violent, little bit on the social media feed, no matter what they did.
Even before October 7th, the Israeli people were going to make sure Netanyahu was not written in history as a good guy. So I don't even agree. I don't agree with that.
No, they were. Okay, they were.
If anything, the genocide is rehabilitating his image.
Jared, last
in Israel,
last year Netanyahu had highest approval rating for, like inside Israel last year. So it was not like this always. Before August 2019, Netanyahu's popularity was down. Just like, George Bush had his down before the 9/11. But after 9/11 happened, George Bush's popularity went high up. Just like after October 7, Netanyahu's went high up. So Netanyahu was really high up. But that high up stature did not remain consistently till now. That is because of the disruption the protesters brought. Let us not undermine that part. It was and they did not just bring it just as a kind to show off. They brought it with a lot of personal sacrifices. We also have to acknowledge that a lot of people have suffered way more than imaginable. So we also have to give it to those guys. People have come on. They have literally lost their livelihoods and jobs, and these things. These protesters are absolutely brave,
nobody's
courageous,
disputing that, Saswat. I'm only disputing. What I am disputing is that the Superman film or films like it would have any positive impact on those efforts. What I'm saying is that the people. Hold
I
on a
think in this
second.
time,
Hold on,
but
Saswat.
not
The people
before
who
that.
are doing that
Yes.
in the streets are not doing that because they saw the film. They're not doing it inspired by the film. They would have been out there anyway. And if
Not
anything,
because of one thing,
the
Jared.
film is going to encourage a set of liberal politics that will impact the successive efforts or the next steps that these activists take. That's my point. That I don't feel like but rather than going
No,
around in
I'm
circles, why don't we use
but
this?
no, but
Why don't we
then
use this to segue? Why don't we
then the
use this? Why
statement
don't we use
the
this to
statement that you were
segue to to
okay
to Kamala Harris, who I think after listening to a good portion of her new book is going to benefit from Superman and get herself back into the race
absolutely
as
not.
a
No, absolutely not. No,
solution
no, no,
to what we're
not nothing
seeing
to do with that.
now.
No, Jared. Yeah, no, that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Also the moment you said that, okay, these people would not do it, after watching the movie. I never said that they would. Forget about, because these people are already there on the street anyways. The movie would not make a dent to that. What I am saying is the movie is an acknowledgement of a growing acceptance of anti-Israeli sentiments. You also have to do that when the Palestinian people themselves are saying that.
But
So
I'm
whether it will
Palestinian,
happen or
we're
not,
not all saying
like
that.
for
How
example,
come my opinion doesn't count here? How come my opinion as a
no,
Palestinian
your
doesn't
opinion, of course,
count?
my opinion doesn't count here
No,
either.
because
Come
you're
on, man. All of you,
talking
three of
about
you
your
are here.
Palestinian friends that are saying this, but I'm Palestinian. I know Palestinian people,
Yes.
and we're not saying that.
Yes.
I think
Okay, I'll be very happy to share
Superman
with you.
dehumanizes brown people. It made them faceless. It made them inept. They were all ooga booga people that could only raise a flag. And on top of it, the Indian guy, this is really crucial. These are the things that we do. And I think it's part of me just kind of feels very amused by all this, because this is our goal, is to get you to feel this passionate about what you think it was. And that guy that got killed, the Indian guy that was the falafel vendor, when they kill him, and maybe you should watch this again because this was very deliberate. When they
I don't actually remember the Indian guy.
This is the amount of interest I got in the movie.
And he wasn't even shown his face on screen. You know what was shown was how much it hurt Superman's feelings. And all of those brown people are little idiot ooga booga people that Superman and the white American society has to go and rescue. And if they don't get rescued, it's okay, because in the end, when he's looking at his American parents, there's a little newspaper article that they remembered the falafel guy. This is another way that a lot of Palestinians feel about this, and feel about white American people interpreting Superman and seeing us in such a dehumanized way. And that is also
you said that they're not considered Palestinians.
I definitely want to segue into Kamala Harris, but I just want to make a couple of acknowledgments. Sasha, I hear you. You believe in the receiver. I get it. You believe in the power of the receiver and the interpretation of the receiver. It's very grad school. I miss it. I miss these kind of discussions. Sam, I hear you.
I am myself the receiver. I am validating myself.
Come on, I hear you, because I don't. The raising the flag, as you know, was supposed to be this big emotional thing that was supposed to move beyond the Ooga Mooga, as into this could be you. But I think what I'm hearing, what you're saying is, at the end of the day, they were still objects. So even when the guy gets the front page, because Gunn makes a big deal about putting the article on the front page, not Superman Saves the Day, but Metropolis's real hero, right? He's still a martyred object. That's your point, correct?
Who has also been consumed by the very media apparatus that had formerly projected him as something else. So back to our grad school discussions as well. They didn't
even show his face when he was shot. They didn't even show his body. He was a faceless brown person.
Right. Because his point, as you said, his point was to spur. He was the magic Arab, right? His point was to spur the
white folks transcend.
To make us feel more bad for Superman, like how much Superman was hurting, like how like, oh, like he, you know, like he failed or something. And this is the messaging.
Well, I want to
No, which has happened in every single anti-colonial movement. It has happened, which is why, you know, FWD, you know, what's in Clark got the Nobel Peace Prize too. See, the people who are oppressing and the ruling class, they are projected that, okay, now they're repenting, they're feeling bad about it, and you know, all those things also take place.
Well, hold on. Let's
the
segue.
eventuality,
Let's segue.
Eventually, what happens is
let's segue to the ruling class and feeling about it by talking about Kamala.
And what did you sacrifice? Calm. Kindness, kinship, love. I've given up all chance at inner peace. I made my mind a sunless space. I share my dreams with ghosts. I wake up every day to an equation I wrote 15 years ago for which there's only one conclusion. I'm damned for what I do. My anger, my ego, my unwillingness to yield, my eagerness to fight, that set me on a path from which there's no escape. I yearn to be a savior against injustice without contemplating the cost, and by the time I look down, there's no longer any ground beneath my feet. What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything, 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 everything.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.